Something lands on your arm. You don't see it first. You feel it. A faint tickle. A tiny weight. Something with too many legs making contact with your skin. And before you've even turned your head to look, before you know what it is, your arm is already moving. You've flinched. Maybe you've gasped. Maybe you've made a noise you'd be a little embarrassed for anyone to hear. You didn't decide to do that. It happened before you had time to think. And here's the strange part. Most of the time, whatever just landed on you was completely harmless. A moth, a fly, something that couldn't hurt you even if it tried. So why does your body react like that? Why does something so small, so weak, so genuinely incapable of doing you any real damage get a response usually reserved for actual danger? The obvious answer is that bugs are just creepy, slimy, crawly, alien-looking things that trigger some vague sense of wrong. But that's a description, not an explanation. And when you actually dig into the research, the real answer splits into pieces, and each piece points to a different chapter of human history. Let's start with the part of this fear that's actually justified. In 2021, a study in Scientific Reports took 329 people and showed them live bugs. Real spiders, scorpions, beetles, cockroaches, centipedes, sitting in clear boxes, and asked them to rate each one for fear, disgust, and even beauty. The answers split cleanly. Spiders and scorpions scored way higher in both fear and disgust than anything else, and they clustered together as their own category, separate from every other insect, like the brain files them in the same drawer. That's interesting because most spiders are harmless. The vast majority can't even break human skin. So why would the brain lump them in with something genuinely deadly? The answer is scorpions. Scorpions kill an estimated 2,600 people every year, and the species with venom dangerous to mammals are native to Africa and the Middle East, exactly where our species spent the majority of its evolutionary history. The leading theory is that the fear of scorpions came first because it had to, and somewhere along the way, that fear spilled over onto spiders. Because spiders are built the same way. 8 legs, no clear head, a way of moving that doesn't look like anything else out there, close enough to set off the same alarm even though the actual danger usually isn't there. Your brain would rather flinch at a harmless spider than relax around a scorpion. The cost of being wrong is too lopsided, and this fear isn't learned. Researchers have found that babies as young as 5 months old already treat spiders as a distinct and attention-grabbing category, long before any parent could have taught them to be afraid. The wiring was already there when they arrived. So that's layer 1. A genuinely useful ancient fear aimed at something dangerous that ended up casting a wide net over something that mostly isn't. Layer 2 is disgust. And disgust is a completely different mechanism from fear, even though they often show up together. Most of what people feel toward insects, cockroaches, maggots, anything wriggling in spoiled food, isn't fear, it's revulsion. So what's that about? Why would the body bother with a whole separate reaction just for things that are gross rather than dangerous? For most of human history, bugs meant disease. They got into food, they bred in waste, they carried parasites. So a strong, instant, gut-level get away from that reaction toward anything that looked like it crawled out of rot kept people from getting sick long before anyone knew germs existed. Scientists call this whole protective reflex the behavioral immune system. Basically, your disgust acting as a first line of defense before your actual immune system ever has to get involved. This is why a beetle on a plate of food provokes a completely different reaction than a beetle on a tree outside. Same insect, different context, different ancient alarm. But there's a third layer, and it might be the one that explains the moment that started this video. The unexpected flinch, the thing landing on your arm, the reaction that happens before you've even identified what touched you. That layer isn't about insects specifically at all. It's about unpredictability. It turns out the brain treats anything it can't predict as a threat, automatically, before you've even had a chance to think about it. Researchers call it fear of the unknown, and one study showed just how strong it is. People got more stressed waiting on a coin flip chance of an electric shock than people who knew for certain the shock was coming. Read that again. Not knowing was worse than a guaranteed shock. Your brain hates uncertainty that much. Now think about how bugs move. Not smoothly, not in straight lines. They dart, freeze, change direction out of nowhere, vanish, reappear, suddenly take off flying. Nothing else around you moves like that. A dog walks toward you, a bird flies in a curve. You can predict those, but a bug's movement is impossible to call ahead of time. And a brain that can't guess what something's about to do just defaults to treating it as a threat. Not because it's decided the bug is dangerous, because it can't rule it out fast enough. And ruling things out fast is the whole point of the system. So when something unexpected lands on your skin, your brain isn't reacting to what it is. It's reacting to the fact that, for a split second, it has no idea what it is, And an unpredictable thing making physical contact with your body is exactly the kind of situation this ancient system was built to interrupt immediately, before you even get the chance to look. Put all three of these together, and the picture becomes clear. Ancient humans almost certainly weren't walking around in a constant state of insect-related dread the way some people describe today. But they very likely carried three separate, narrow, useful instincts. A sharp fear of things shaped like scorpions, a strong disgust toward anything associated with rot and disease, and a fast, reflexive flinch toward anything small and unpredictable, making sudden contact with the body. None of those three systems know what a bug is. They're not unified. They evolved separately, for separate reasons, at separate points in an extremely long history. But in the modern world, almost everything that crawls or flies trips at least one of them. And so it all gets bundled together into one feeling. The feeling of something landing on your arm and your whole body reacting before your mind is caught up. You're not overreacting. You're running three different alarm systems at once, each one doing exactly the job it was built for, on a target none of them were originally built for. So the next time something sends you screaming across the room like you've seen a monster, don't worry. Your brain genuinely thinks you have.